Have you ever looked at a map, maybe?
Yeah.
Or even just thought about the cultural ties between, say, the U.S. and Mexico, and wondered how things that happened so long ago still, shape things today, like how borders got drawn or why certain relationships are the way they are. Well, today, using the notes and articles you put together, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that kind of moment, the Mexican-American War. It's a conflict that sometimes gets overshadowed, I think, but it was hugely impactful, really laid down some fundamental lines on the map of North America. So our mission here is to unpack the core causes, figure out who the key players were on both sides, look at the really pivotal battles, and crucially understand the lasting consequences, all based on the material we have here.
Exactly. And this isn't just, reciting facts. It's about seeing how a war from the 1840s connects to things we still see today. Maybe border issues, maybe cultural identity stuff. It's finding those echoes, really.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. The absolute basics. The Mexican-American War was fought between the United States and Mexico. It started April 25th, 1846, and went to February 2nd, 1848.
Right. Relatively short as major wars go, but with massive consequences. And the main spark, as your notes show really clearly, was territory, specifically the U.S. annexing Texas back in 1845.
Right.
Mexico hadn't really accepted Texas's independence from years before, so they definitely still considered Texas part of Mexico. Annexation was problematic.
And feels like it was more than just a little border fight, doesn't it? There were these deeper ambitions, these unresolved issues just bubbling under the surface for a while. Okay, so let's unpack this. Why did it actually start? There seem to be three big reasons. First, like you said, the annexation of Texas. Texas declared independence from Mexico in 1836. Then later, the U.S. annexes it in 45, and Mexico just refused to recognize either of those things. Not independence, not annexation. That had to be a huge point of tension.
Absolutely. A major flashpoint.
Then second, directly tied to that, was the border dispute. This is kind of wild. The U.S. claimed the border was the Rio Grande River.
Mm-hmm. Way down south.
But Mexico said, no, the border is the Nueces River.
Right.
Which is, quite a bit further north.
That's right. So you have this huge chunk of land claimed by both sides, inherently unstable.
And then the third big one, maybe the most ideological, manifest destiny.
Manifest destiny, yeah. It's crucial to understand this wasn't just a policy. For many Americans, it was this powerful, almost spiritual belief. The idea that the U.S. was destined, maybe even by God, to expand across the continent westward, all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
Wow. So less a political goal and more like fate?
Kind of, yeah. And that belief directly fueled the push to get more land. California, New Mexico, all of it. Which, of course, meant conflict with Mexico, who actually, controlled that land.
That makes sense. A powerful driver. So, okay, with that ambition, you needed people to actually make it happen. Who are the key figures here? On both sides. Let's start with the U.S. Some of these names might ring a bell, actually, especially if you know your Civil War history later on. You've got President James K. Polk. He sounds like the main engine behind the war push, right? Big believer in manifest destiny, very aggressive about expanding.
Definitely a driving force from the White House.
Then on the military side, General Zachary Taylor. He got famous pretty quickly with wins at Palo Alto, Resaca de la Palma, and later Buena Vista. Became a huge hero.
And eventually president himself, number 12.
Right. And then General Winfield Scott, known for being maybe more strategic. He led that big amphibious landing at Veracruz and eventually captured Mexico City itself in 47.
A very significant campaign, Scott's march to Mexico City.
We also see General Stephen W. Kearny, who took New Mexico and was involved out in California, and John C. Fremont, kind of an explorer military guy, involved in the Bear Flag Revolt in California.
Right. The situation in California was complex, with figures like Fremont playing a part.
Okay, now on the Mexican side. The big name seems to be Antonio Lopez de Santana. General, president, kind of back and forth.
Exactly. A dominant figure in Mexican politics for decades. He actually came back from exile to lead the army during this war, commanded at places like Buena Vista.
But ultimately didn't succeed in stopping the U.S. forces.
No, and then there was General Mariano Arista. He was in command early on, but lost those first key battles, Palo Alto and Resaca de la Palma.
Okay, and Valentin Gomez Farias,
Yeah.
more of a political figure.
Yes, acting president at different times. Which points to something really important. While the U.S. had Polk pushing a pretty clear expansionist agenda, Mexico was dealing with a lot of internal political turmoil, constant changes in leadership, instability.
So that must have made it incredibly difficult to mount a unified, effective war effort.
immensely difficult. It's a crucial piece of context when you look at how the war unfolded. They faced enormous strategic challenges beyond just the U.S. military.
That adds a whole other layer. Okay, so knowing that, let's look at the battles themselves, the turning points on the ground. Where did things really happen? Things kicked off with the Battle of Palo Alto, May 1846. That was the first big one. A U.S. victory, right? Showcased their artillery advantage.
That's right. Superior artillery played a big role early on.
Followed almost immediately by the Battle of Resaca de la Palma, also May 46, another U.S. win. That seems to have secured the disputed Texas territory for them, practically speaking.
Yes, those initial battles were decisive in the North.
Then later that year, September 46, the Battle's Monterey. U.S. forces captured that key city.
A hard-fought urban battle.
Then, jumping to February 1847, the Battle of Buena Vista. This sounds significant. General Taylor defeating Santa Anna's army, even though Santa Anna had way more troops.
A major victory for Taylor, yeah. Really boosted his reputation back in the States. Santa Anna's forces were larger, but faced logistical issues, and Taylor's defenses held.
And then Scott's campaign. The Siege of Veracruz in March 1847. You mentioned the amphibious landing. That sounds like a huge deal for the time.
It was the first large-scale amphibious landing in U.S. history. Very complex operation, successfully executed. It opened the road to Mexico City.
And that road led to the Battle of Chapultepec in September 1847, storming the castle that guarded the capital city.
Yes, and Chapultepec. This battle is incredibly important symbolically, especially in Mexico.
Why is that?
It's where the Niños heroes, the boy heroes, fought and died. 6 young Mexican military cadets who, legend holds, defended the castle to the very last. Some even wrapped themselves in the flag before leaping to their deaths rather than surrender.
Wow.
They are revered national heroes in Mexico today. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How the same event can hold such different, powerful meanings for the nations involved. It tells you a lot about national memory.
That's a really powerful point. The different ways history is remembered. And then right after Chapultepec came the capture of Mexico City, also September 1847. That basically ended the major fighting.
Effectively, yes. Organized resistance largely collapsed after the capital fell.
So, okay, the fighting stops. What happens next? What does this all mean in the long run? Let's talk about the treaty and the consequences.
Right. The end comes with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed in 1848. And the territorial changes, they were just massive. Mexico formally ceded, gave up over 500,000 square miles of territory to the United States. This huge area became known as the Mexican Cession.
And that includes land that would become
California, Nevada, Utah, most of Arizona and New Mexico, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming. Just enormous. Basically the entire American Southwest.
half their country, effectively.
Roughly half, yes.
Yeah.
In return, the U.S. paid Mexico $15 million and also agreed to cover about $3.25 million in debts that the Mexican government owed to U.S. citizens.
$15 million for California and the Southwest. Sounds like a bargain today, but obviously a devastating loss for Mexico.
Absolutely devastating.
And the consequences went way beyond just land and money, didn't they?
Yeah.
Back in the U.S., this new territory immediately inflamed the slavery debate.
Hugely. The question became, would these vast new territories allow slavery or be free? It intensified the sectional conflict that eventually led to, well, the Civil War.
So a direct link there. And it's also interesting how many future Civil War generals got their first real combat experience in this war.
Yes, Grant, Lee, Longstreet, Stonewall Jackson. Many prominent figures served as junior officers in Mexico. It was a crucial training ground, you could say.
And for Mexico, losing half its territory, that must still resonate today.
Profoundly. It's a defining event in Mexican history, shaping national identity, and certainly the complex relationship with the United States ever since. It's a historical trauma that hasn't fully healed.
Well, for the U.S., it was kind of the final piece of the puzzle for Manifest Destiny, reaching the Pacific.
Exactly. It cemented the U.S. as a continental nation, coast to coast, a pivotal moment in American expansion.
It really shows how one conflict can just send ripples out for, well, centuries. Reshaping countries, reshaping relationships.
It does, and it highlights how history isn't just something in the past. Its effects are woven into the fabric of the present, whether we always see it or not. Think about demographics, culture, politics in the Southwest today. So much traces back to this period.
What a journey then. From those disputed borders and that powerful idea of manifest destiny, through the battles, the key figures, and finally this massive transfer of land, we've sort of traced how the conflict started, played out, and how its end reshaped North America so fundamentally.
And that's why these deep dives are so valuable, I think. Using the material you gathered, we can really get into the layers, understand the why behind the what, and see those connections to our world now.
So, something for you, the listener, to maybe think about. How do events like this, especially ones involving such huge land transfers and the shifting of peoples, keep shaping national identities and international relations, even generations later? What echoes of the Mexican-American War might you still be able to hear today, maybe in ways we don't even consciously recognize?
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thank you to our hosts, Sam and Kiara. This is editor Mike. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.